It's wet and worn. A few brave car owners share their cars with us today on Cruisin'. Next. Hi, welcome to Cruisin'. I'm Handy Randy, and we're at the Skyway Drive-In in Warren, Ohio. Great concept of doing a car cruise-in at a drive-in theater. For all of you old folks out there, you remember drive-ins where you would sneak your buddies in the trunk? Well, we checked the trunks of these vehicles and they're all clean. You're a brave person. You brought your beautiful 36 Ford four-door sedan out in this terrible weather. But to prove that you're a brave person, you own this Ford, yet you live in Lordstown, Ohio.
Yes, I do. But my husband has a 1940 Chevy Coupe, and we both have Chevy engines, so.
Okay, that keeps it legal in Lordstown.
Yes.
Now, I understand this beautiful vehicle was in a pretty bad accident just a few years ago. Tell us about that.
Yes, we were coming home from a car show in downtown Warren, and a guy ran a red light and totaled my 36 out.
Holy smoke.
So my husband had to redo it from the frame up.
When you originally bought this Ford, it was stock, so it didn't have the modern running gear on it. Tell us about that.
When we first bought it, it was original, and it had the flat V8 engine, and I couldn't drive it too well. He turned it over to a street rod.
Okay, nice, very nice car. Now, what do you like about the car now more than anything else?
I just like the whole car. It rides nice, it drives nice, and I just like the whole car.
Did you pick out the color or did your husband pick out the color?
I picked out the color.
Good girl, excellent choice. Now, do you know what color that is?
Yes, it's indigo blue, 2002 truck color paint.
Excellent choice. And you're not afraid, obviously, you're not afraid to drive this car.
No, we take it everywhere. We even take it down to Columbus, Ohio, and we drive it.
I see the interior was redone when you went over the car again. Is that something that you had some input as to how that was going to be done in the color and so forth?
Yes, I picked out the colors, and a guy from Liberty, Ohio did my interior.
Was it a long-term job to redo the car from the wreck and the interior and all of that?
Not really. We had it back on the road in 3 months.
Wow, excellent.
Yes.
And finally, I want to ask you a little bit. You said it's a fun car to drive and easy to drive. Can you take it out on Route 80 and drive it and have a nice smooth ride?
Yes, it's very smooth ride, and sure get going too.
Well, that's the beauty of a car like this, especially that's modernized. It's safe enough that you can take it out on the road. And with the modern driveline, you can stay up with all of the traffic, correct?
Right, right. And my husband did a wonderful job rebuilding it, so.
Well, we thank you so much, and we really appreciate this very unique, beautiful 36 Ford with now a modern driveline. And after the terrible accident, it looks as good as new, maybe even better.
My husband did a wonderful job, and thank you for having us here.
Chuck Adams from Columbiana, Ohio. He's standing next to his beautiful 1964 Chrysler 300. Very unique and rare. Tell us about it, Chuck.
Actually, it's called the Spring Edition. It was only manufactured in the gray black Landau roof and black leather interior in the spring of '64. There was about 3,800 Chrysler 300s, less than 10% is to be the Spring Edition. But the interior, when I bought it, I looked at it and I told my wife, well, it must have been reupholstered. There's a headrest on the passenger side. Dig into it a little bit, turns out that was an option in '64. A headrest on the passenger side only. Nothing has been done to this car. It's totally original, except it was repainted about 20 years ago. Other than that, this whole car is original. I've got about 90,000 miles on it now. Back in April, high school friend of mine, Dennis, who is in the cars too, he followed me. We drove it to Florida to a car show down there in Williston, Florida. Everybody said, "Are you crazy? You're gonna drive it that far?" I said, "I bought it to drive it. I enjoy driving it. It's like sitting on your couch going down the highway." Fortunately, we had no trouble there and back. All three of our cars ran perfect.
Now you say this is a 383 with a torque flight transmission.
Correct.
Unique way to shift these cars.
Push button drive. Everybody at car shows, well, where's the selector? How do you get into gear? They got to put their heads in the car to find out it's push button.
Now you mentioned this being a 300. That signified it was 300 horsepower. The first Chrysler had the first 300 horsepower production car back in '55. Does that follow through on your car as well?
No, this is a 305 horsepower and torque flight transmission, but 305 horsepower. Actually, I was totally surprised on the way to Florida. I was getting 16, 17 miles to the gallon. Car this size, that big, I felt very, very happy about that.
You're here with a couple of your friends parked next to you. It's kind of a unique story, you and your friends. Tell us that.
Well, we all three went to school together. When I bought this car, I knew Dennis was into cars long before me, and I called him and says, "How about stopping over my house and look at this car I bought? I don't know if I made a good deal or not." Dennis came over to look at it, and we've been running around to car shows ever since. Then another friend of ours, Bill, all high school friends, he bought a car. So we enjoy traveling together, and we all went to school together, so it's a lot of fun.
Stay tuned for more great cars from the Skyway Drive-In on Cruisin'. Now back to the Cruise-In at the Skyway Drive-In in Warren, Ohio. Dennis, you told me that soon after high school, your first car was a '60 Pontiac Ventura.
Correct.
Unlike this one.
This one is a Catalina. Similar in size, a little bit different option package. And of course the Bonneville is the big one. And it, believe it or not, is about 10 inches longer than this beast.
You told me you always had a yearning to get back into a '60 Pontiac.
Yeah, I'd cruised for quite a few years, probably 8 or 10, and never even seen a '60 Pontiac. And one day I was going through the news counter and picked up a hot rod magazine, and there was a 1960 Pontiac featured inside that edition, and that kind of got the fires burning in me again. So I went on a couple-year crusade before I found this one. I saw it advertised, thought, well, Cincinnati's close enough to go look at. So we took a trip down, looked at it, took it for a test drive, and I liked the car, and I told the gentleman, this was like in January, and told him, well, I had no way to get it home. And he told me that he would be glad to store it, charge free, until the weather got nicer. So I believe it was like the middle of March. It got nice enough. We took a trip down, brought it home.
Now, we're going to have to call this Pontiac a hybrid.
It starts with the front grille, which is custom made, just 2 horizontal bars, and it has 1960 Buick headlight rings. The hood is a 1959 Impala hood, which has a ridge down it rather than the valley that the Pontiacs had. And of course, it has the quarter panel louvers. The ones in the front are louvered out. The ones in the rear are louvered in. Then as you go around the back, it's got tunneled tail lights with 56 Chevy Bullet tunneled inside. They've removed the parking light and some window etching on both the windshield and the rear window.
Functional side pipes?
Yeah, those are fake side pipes. They're not functional. And then on the inside, the rear seat is from a '66 Pontiac Grand Prix. And the front seats are the swivel bucket seats from a '59 Plymouth Fury.
Now, does that make it run better?
No, but it makes it cool.
You said originally, though, this had kind of a different paint scheme.
Yeah, well, the fellow that originally customized it, it was all white on top, and it was like a, what they call a tangelo down below the belt line here. And the interior didn't have the neutral carpet that it has now. It had orange carpet to go with the orange seats and dash.
Very unique, and yearly they have lead sled conventions. And
Yes.
I'm sure that you would be invited back to New Jersey where this car originated.
Yeah, I would like to take it there someday. We've been doing other stuff, but they have a real nice show there called Lead Sled East, and it's all in a common parking lot of 4 hotels, and that's what goes there, the lead sleds.
And it'd fit right in with that New Jersey group.
I
wouldn't it?
believe it would, yes.
Dennis Ingram, very cool car, and that fits right into what our theme is, and that is we love old, unique vehicles, and this fits the bill.
Well, thank you very much.
Next up, the Buckeye guys give us the real costs on a quality concourse style renovation.
Welcome to this week's edition of Cruising with the Buckeye guys. Today I have Don and Mr. Bruce, and his hair is looking mighty fine today. Anyhow, what we're going to discuss today, how to properly paint a car, the hours that can go involved with it, and the unknowns. And Bruce and Don and myself are going to explain that. We're going to have a great conversation so you're more informed out there on what it actually takes. Bruce, you want to start off?
I've been to Barrett-Jackson a few times. Every time I go, it just seems that when the auctioneer is up there, he continues to say paint is everything. Now, of course, I disagree with that. Detail work and assembly complements the other. Paint complements the assembly of the car and vice versa. But people just tend to look at paint first.
Now, Bruce, we're talking about hours on a paint job, from bare metal all the way to completion. We're looking at 300 plus hours, sometimes 450 hours, depending what the customer wants at the end.
If not more.
And if you do a paint job less than 250 hours, it's going to look like, you know what, as a shop,
Right.
we have to give you a quality product. We have to give you for the time. And it all comes down to the hours you put at the car. And the customer we have to work with so they understand what they're getting.
And in a lot of cases, you really don't know what you're getting into until you have the car down to bare metal.
Bruce, on estimates, and Don can say this, all high-end restoration shops give no estimate. Reason being, you don't know.
Right.
And it's just throwing darts at the wall if you give an estimate, because every car is different. There's too many unknowns.
To shop to cover themselves, you really have to go time and material.
Your experiences with the time and material and how it works, and how we go down the line, and the products you need that go into a paint job.
I would say the biggest thing is just to make sure that the customer is aware that there's going to be multiple different block sanding procedures and steps throughout the build. You're looking anywhere from 4 to 6 different blocks on the car. Each time you're masking the car and spraying the car with filler, disassembly and reassembly, checking fitment, making sure everything's straight and true and all your body lines are correct.
Now, Bruce, how many times do we check fender gaps, make sure they're right, taking the hood off, taking the deck lid off, putting it back on? You're 2, 3, 4 times, depending on the car. And every car is different. There's no set in stone.
If not even more. Yeah, because you want a correct fit to get a good gap. A lot of your aftermarket parts today that in a lot of cases are the only things available, you have to add pieces to the back of a fender just to make the gap correct to match up the front of the top of the door.
And speaking of original parts are the same way. Every original part you strip, hood, deck, lid, whatever, doors, they're junk. You strip them down, there's holes, they're rotted out in the seams. So what do? It costs more to fix it or put a repo on. You're stuck at a catch-22. We let the customers decide. We also try to recommend the repo route because it's sometimes just not worth fixing the original rusted out piece.
Right.
What makes a $100,000 restoration a $100,000 restoration? And it depends on the car, it depends on the quality of the work. Bruce, I know you've had some cars sold at auctions that brought high dollars. I've sold some cars that brought high dollars. What does that? And the hours that go into that type of restoration are 1,800 plus. I mean, if you look at it, It just takes a long time to pull the long dollar out of these cars.
And a lot of it has to do with the rarity of the vehicle. In a lot of cases, you have customers that just have a car that, because of sentimental factors, they want a beautiful job. So you're going to get into multiple hours to get a car perfectly straight.
Right now, with the body work and stuff and the paint work, that's only half the restoration. You have the assembly side, which minimum 500 hours to put a car together. It just, you know, it's 1,000 hours minimum on any car, no matter how you look at it.
And in a lot of cases, most cases, you have to pre-fit and then tear it apart to paint.
Now,
So that absorbs a lot of time, so you're actually putting the car together twice.
right now, Don, as being the parts guy, you've seen how the reproduction aftermarket parts are. You came from this business from the automotive side, the OEM side, and you can see how different it is. It is night and day. You have parts that don't fit. You have a lot of rework that goes in the panels and rusted out parts that you do not see in the OEM side of the business.
Absolutely, and if you have a shop or even a home guy that doesn't necessarily have the experience, a lot of time they'll take these aftermarket parts and they'll just start body work right away, paint them, and then when they go to put them on the vehicle, they don't fit. That's why you'll see, you know, us fitting regular out-of-the-box parts before we start any body work. We want to make sure everything fits and everything is perfect before we spend the time to go ahead and do the body work and get the paint on it. You know, to touch on what Bruce said, you see a lot of guys spending $25,000 or $35,000 on a motor and a drivetrain, you know, and then they want to skip out on some of the paint work. And, you know, like you said, Bruce, that's the first thing everybody sees. Why not put the time and money into it to make it an absolutely beautiful car?
Right.
As we go into OEM car work we were talking about with Don here, he comes from that side of the business. Now, a collision shop, they get these programs called the Mitchell program that says, okay, fit this hood. It gives them 8 hours and 4 hours paint time. With restoration work and custom car work, there is no really estimate this time and material because, as we were talking about, the parts don't fit. Restoration work takes excellent craftsmen. You have to be good with your hands. You have to know how to engineer items to fit. It is a completely different animal.
A lot of that comes with years of experience, knowing what works well for you, ways you could save time through craftsmanship.
The question of NOS parts, okay, the NOS parts that are available that are left really aren't that good. Reason being, the NOS stuff that's left is old die runs. It's rejected factory line stuff. Bruce, some of it's not that good, but it's better than the repo when you look at it. So some of the NOS stuff does require some rework.
Right, and you really have to weigh it out. There were a couple gilt fender CUDA fenders a number of years back at $7,000 for a pair. Ridiculous. But NOS, you're going to pay for it being an original part.
And if you want, you know, to pay for craftsmanship, Buckeye Classic Car Restoration is your place to come to. We have some of the best craftsmen in Ohio and even in the Midwest, I will say. With the work we've done over the years, the last SEMA car we did just blew it out of the water. All right, as you can see here with our awesome discussion we had at Buckeye Classic Car Restoration today, that we went from paint, body, custom work. We can do it all at Buckeye Classic Car Restoration. Give us a call at 330-533-4757.
Hey, we're at the Skyway Drive-In. We'll be back with more car stuff right after this. Don't go away.
From project to pride and joy, the restoration specialists at Buckeye Classic Car Restoration can make your dreams come true. Our master body, paint, and mechanical technicians have over 100 years of experience. They do research, can communicate every detail of the restoration process, and their restorations win big-time awards. Buckeye Classic Car Restoration cars have been winning awards since 2001. Let the restoration specialists at Buckeye Classic Car Restoration turn your project into an award winner.
Now back to the cruise-in at the Skyway Drive-In in Warren, Ohio. What makes this really special is it's a Corvair convertible. We don't see a whole lot of those.
Well, not ones that are 50-some years old.
Now, I've got to believe that this car may have been renovated over the years.
I'm sure it was painted. I don't know how much body work was done to it. I bought it from a museum.
It was on display in the museum.
Yeah, it was Fred's museum at TP Tools in Canfield. I saw the car about 2 years ago, and I asked him if he'd consider selling it, and he did not want to sell it at the time. And then just last year, a friend of mine called me and said it was for sale, so I talked to my wife that day, and she said, go buy it. I had one similar to it when I was a high school kid, and I've always liked them.
So you decided you were going to buy one of Ralph Nader's favorite vehicles. Tell us that story.
Yeah, Ralph Nader, he didn't get along very well with General Motors. He wrote the book, Unsafe at Any Speed. And as a matter of fact, that's what it says on the back of my hat. But I guess most of what he felt was terrible about the cars was debunked. It's a nice little car. It runs well, fun to drive. I get a lot of comments from people. Most people say either my grandmother had one or I wrecked one when I was a high school kid and things like that.
They do move quite well and move around, and as you said, fun little car, almost a sports car feel.
Yeah, they are. They handle, I think, real well, and just they're fun to drive. You get a lot of looks from people. A lot of people don't know what kind of car it is. It's a rear-engine car. It's got a 6-cylinder horizontal air-cooled engine. So the engine's in the rear, and trunk is in the front.
How often do you get an opportunity to go around with a top down, which is a real added plus?
I had it up, down. I had it down until I got here tonight. And, usually I put it down, I leave it down. I don't put it, I never put it up.
Well, unfortunately, we had kind of a soggy night here at the Skyway Drive-In, and we really appreciate you putting the top up and coming out and joining us tonight. I really love these cars, and they're always a fun car, and this one in particular, it's very, very nice.
Well, thank you, Randy.
We want to thank the people from Skyway Drive-In, the owners and folks from the great car community here in Warren, and of course you people. We want you to find a car cruise near you. I'm Handy Randy, and we're signing off from Cruisin'.